Joy, a big part of having you today that made us excited is that Joy has some questions just regarding her life and the fact that she's in the process of trying to live out some of her fears.
Yes.
And who better to talk about that than through your lens?
So I'm sure you've shared this a lot of times, but I'm just curious, what about fear made you go, I have to write about this? There needs to be a whole song dedicated to calling out that fear is not important in our lives.
Yeah, for me, it was... I come into the Christian genre, new artists, kind of a lot of things happen pretty quick. And for me, I was stepping on stage a lot of times, walking out to play a show or to meet people or, take a picture. And I just started hearing this voice in my head all the time, kind of like, you don't deserve this. You don't belong here. You're never going to be good enough. Like, don't you remember your past, where you were? So it was like, I had this voice in my head all the time, and I knew, growing up, from what I heard my parents tell me, that God hadn't given me a spirit of fear. I knew the devil had been defeated and I knew what God said about me, but I also started thinking about, all the other people that are out there that probably go through similar things. And no matter who's told you at one point in your life, you've not been good enough or strong enough or pretty enough, or the list goes on and on. We all know that comes from the devil,
Yeah, that voice is real. I've experienced it.
Yeah, and for me, I didn't think there were many songs out that had really put in a face with a name that really just called out fear for who he was. And I sat down one day with some friends of mine. We finished a song, and I said, I've got an idea for a new song. And the idea was just that let's put a face to the name of fear, and let's put all the things that he tells us that we're not, and then let's put what God says that we are. And so I was reading 1 John 4:18, doing a devotional, and it said, there's no fear in love. Perfect love casts out all fear. And that kind of began to be a prayer of mine, and that ended up being the bridge to the song and a big part of the song. And my hope when we wrote it was that if anybody's going through this, struggling with fear, anxiety, depression, just not feeling worthy, that just listening to the lyrics could give them hope that they could stand up, and just call the devil out and remind him that he's a liar.
Absolutely. I think the hardest part for me is taking the knowledge of the song that I had and putting it into practice.
Oh, yeah.
With you singing this all the time, I'm sure it's extra hard, because then it's almost like, I wonder if those voices get louder sometimes and they're like, what do you do? And you haven't conquered fear completely. How do you use the song and battle that?
It's funny. A lot of times I call my wife and she's kind of my voice of reason. And I can remember about a month ago, I was kind of going through some issues. I thought maybe I'd, damaged a vocal cord, and I'd really gotten it'd gotten in my head, more than anything, that something was wrong. I felt like I wasn't hitting the notes, wasn't being able to get where I wanted to go. And I called her just kind of stressed out, and she was like, what are you singing about every night? And I'm like, okay, I get it. And she was like, how are you going to stand up on stage and sing Fear is a Liar and be stressed out about this all the time? So it was kind of that, a lot of times I think we need that reality check. And for me, my family, my wife's really good at, doing that. And I think having people around you that kind of call you out when you're not walking in what you're talking, is good.
Isn't it interesting when you say the lies that you hear, when you say them out loud, the things that make you afraid, even you saying that you don't belong or things like that, we have seen the power of the words God has given you in people's lives directly. So we know that's not true, but in your mind, it almost becomes a reality. And when I think I'm not good enough to do this, it seems like such a reality. But do you think there's something about our words or singing those kind of lyrics that like make fear lose some of that power?
I believe, I believe in speaking life, and what you speak into existence. And for me, that was like when I called her that night and talked to her about it, I just started believing and confessing that there was nothing wrong with my voice and that God had it under control, and that's the thing, when that happens, I think as believers, we just need to remind him that he's already been defeated. He's under our feet, and maybe we just need to press down a little harder on him,
I like that.
How often do you get people like Joy coming to you about that song and using the application for their own life and their own unique situation? And how gratifying is that for you?
I get a lot of messages, a lot of letters and emails and things like that, just people sharing what the song has done in their life. And it's awesome. I I can speak for pretty much anybody that writes music, especially in Christian music. Like when you have an intention for a song and you see it being used the way, you intended for it, like God's using that song to reach people, that's better than any kind of, award or anything you can get, is just knowing that that song is reaching thousands of people who are going through the things that you were going through when you wrote it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that still happens. Something that I've been thinking about a lot and trying to identify is, when am I acting in a way that I'm being motivated by fear? And in singing that song so often, and we hear it on Way FM, have you started to be able to identify like, ooh, I'm doing this out of fear, or I'm not? And like, how does that help you?
Yeah, I think it does. Fear causes you to make a lot of bad decisions. And I've kind of caught myself a few times getting in my kind of anxious stage, and then just having a little self-check and stepping back. And I've got a good group of guys in my band that, I can remember going through that a month ago and just kind of stressed out. Like they could sense it, and they would just kind of like, hey dude, let's just pray for you. Let me pray for you for this, right? And so that's good to have people like that around you too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that when you call it to attention, they're like, well, let's take it to God. He can handle it better.
Two or more are gathered.
Yeah, for sure.
You ever get like outside of yourself? Or actually, this is a better way to put this. Do you feel, because the song is so identifiable now, I mean, people can sing it verbatim, people love it. Do you feel an extra added responsibility to live it out yourself because you wrote it and it's your song now?
Yeah, I think so. And I think a lot of times too, like writing a song like this, when you're calling out the devil, to be honest with you, it's almost an invitation for a little spiritual warfare sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I think that he knows that. Like God's given me a really cool opportunity and an amazing platform now to share what he's done in my life. And the devil would love nothing more than to just destroy that. Yeah. And so I constantly have to kind of be on my toes and prayed up, going out and playing these shows. So,
well, even think about that lie you were talking about earlier, even that you were afraid something was wrong with your voice. It seems like the things that get attacked the most with fear are the things that God is using the most.
Yeah, exactly.
So when your voice is being used so powerfully, you're suddenly like, what if my voice is gone? Exactly. And even though you're currently singing and performing, the fear of that can be crippling. And I think we just have to be aware, like you said, that the things that God is using will be attacked, but not to be afraid of it, but to just know that we can fight that. We can call it out. We do have power. We're not helpless. We don't have to live in fear.
I've gotten to a place now where if I'm not being attacked, I almost feel like maybe I'm not doing something right. You know what I mean? Like, am I in God's will or doing what he's wanting me to do if things are going too smooth? So.
That's a new way to look at it.
It's almost like the good stuff, or maybe the best stuff comes out of that resistance a little bit. Like when you feel yourself going against the grain, do you feel like, okay, it's time to throttle down and keep going?
There's something good on the other side of this.
Yeah.
Now that is a bit like, it's a big truth bomb right there. Because, I think as human beings, don't you think it's almost our nature sometimes with resistance to just give in, like,
oh yeah. Well, I mean, I remember my grandparents. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. Like that. That's the truth. I mean, you don't get where you want to go by just taking the easy road.
Yeah. And then you realize you're a real grown up when you start quoting your grandparents.
Exactly.
They're so smart.
You're like, wait a second. Where's the adult? That's me.
Exactly.